I was shocked to see the leaders insulting each other in public, bringing the organization into disrepute instead of talking to one another and resolving whatever issues. The intervention comes after Malatjie, addressing ANC members in the West Rand this week, took a swipe at the cigar-smoking Gauteng leaders who were too busy with slay queens while the party's electoral fortunes in the province took a knock. In retaliation, Maile took to X, fingering
up and down. The ANC in the province was nowhere in the election campaigns. They were nowhere in the election campaigns.
To cancel this disciplinary hearing and postpone it for after elections, would continue after the elections results. And of course, the date was given, and they then proposed that the matter of the disciplinary must be done virtually as opposed to physically, because they had done a security assessment and they had realized that it would cause friction between members of the MK and the members of the MKP, the MK party. As we have seen that, in fact, I want you to...
Overseas where party supporters in Gauteng have gathered at Beyers Naudé Square in Johannesburg near Luthuli House to show their support for former ANC President Jacob Zuma. Zuma has been represented by former ANC NEC member Tony Yengeni. He's expected to...
So for anybody to stand up and insult not just a few people, insult volunteers of the ANC in all the regions, to insult the leadership of the ANC and behave like a hired gun. It has no place in the ANC. And that's why the ANC in Gauteng has written to the officials to say we need to an audience with you, because these unwarranted attacks, they have to be clarified where they come from, who are the sources of these particular attacks, what informs them, why are we beginning to see a youth league that we thought that were doing away with such behaviors of the youth league of Julius.
Here's the rule that actually applied to Jacob Zuma in this instance. Joining or supporting, and this is rule point 25.17.12, joining or supporting a political organization or party other than the organization in alliance with the ANC in a manner contrary to the aims, objectives, and policy of the ANC. Hey, what's going on, people? Welcome to it, man. It's another episode of the Free Ride podcast. I really appreciate it. I wanted to do a quick video just to talk about two matters that really caught my attention and of course caught your attention last week. I'm talking about, firstly, the war between the ANC Youth League, Gauteng ANC leadership, and of course what the ANC Youth League president had to say, as well as the response coming from Gauteng ANC. Then I want to talk about Zuma being expelled by the African National Congress. So let's go. Let's talk about it. All right. So here's the first issue. ANC boss Fikile Mbalula has laid down the law and told the ANC Youth League president Maile and Malatjie and Gauteng elections head Maile to stop misbehaving or face disciplinary charges for bringing the ANC into disrepute. Now, this comes in a week when a cold war between Luthuli House and the ANC's country's economic hub reached a climax. Malatjie and Maile stole the political discourse spotlight this week when they fired political salvos against one another in the public domain. Mbalula told Sunday World that he was forced to call the duo to order and promised to hold them over the coals if the public spats do not cease immediately. I intervened decisively by engaging both of them to cease the public spats. I told them not to test me, and they fell into line. Even this week, I will attend to them in Luthuli and emphasize that they must never behave like gossip mongers. I was shocked to see the leaders insulting each other in public, bringing the organization into disrepute instead of talking to one another and resolving whatever issues. The intervention comes after Malatjie, addressing ANC members in the West Rand this week, took a swipe at the cigar-smoking Gauteng leaders who were too busy with slay queens while the party's electoral fortunes in the province took a knock. In retaliation, Maile took to X, fingering Malatjie for being sent by sugar daddies to insult us because they are cowards, daring him to show their faces. Due to political ispiti-piti that the political ping-pong caused, Mbalula said he called both Malatjie and Maile individually to seek the explanations, to which they are not convincing, and he read them the Riot Act. Alright, so at this point I want you to take a look at this particular video, because this is what Colin Malatjie said, man. Check it out.
Was sitting at below 40 in Gauteng because they've deployed people who don't service the people of Gauteng. Okungana election campaign like Gauteng. Ama election like Gauteng, besibona nje upanya zakuphela is up and down. The ANC in the province was nowhere in the election campaigns. They were nowhere in the election campaigns. Bebashele bema cigars, masema stadium, mashele kuma sutu, basha ma champagne na ma slay queen, bakhohiwe abantu bebeya. When we honor Nelson Mandela, we must go back to basics. Abantu bethu bakhathele ama-leader ama-celebrate. Bafuna ama-leader abazo-accessa. We need them to be on the ground every day, Comrade Tsako. And the deputy chief whip, ungathenga ama-suit, you don't need suits. You must buy overalls. We want to hear resolving problems of our people. Inkinga yenu ukuthi manje bamameya Comrade lingena kuma-aircon offices, you forget to come to the ground. Now we're saying that those offices like he must close them. The problems are resolved here on the ground. Ungacleanwa lana kuphela makuthi kuzoba president. Mele kukhale kucleanwa la.
All right, so you heard it for yourself. Of course, something that Colin Malatjie said, and of course on Twitter, the conversation went even crazy, man. So I want to, at this point, tell you what Colin Malatjie said. I asked, Mbalula said actually about his conversations with Colin Malatjie. He said, I asked Colin Malatjie, and he said, Lebogang fired the first missile and blamed the Youth League for the electoral outcomes of Gauteng and called them useless. And he was hitting back. I told him in no uncertain terms that he was wrong. So Lebogang, for his part, said that the cigar smoker and entertainer of slay queens was referred to him. So he felt that one. I asked him if he has any slay queens, and he insisted that he believed it was a veiled swipe directed at him. I called both of them to order. Mbalula said he asked Maile if he was referring to him with the sugar daddy's jibe. And but the Gauteng Finance MEC said no, going on to explain that he heard Malatjie was being sent to attack him by the National Executive Committee NEC member. According to Mbalula, there was no beef between him and Gauteng leaders, which he believes is just unfortunate perception that he was fueled by unrelated events. Mbalula confirmed that he received a letter from the ANC Gauteng top brass seeking a meeting with national officials, but he dismissed it and explained to Provincial Secretary Thembikosi TK Ngciza that such a letter was based on misguided suspicion that he was fighting them. I clarified with him because the request was based on things I said in my interview with you and told him I never attacked them, but I was responding to your question. But some Gauteng leaders wanted the national officials to platform to vent their displeasure against Mbalula, whom they believe is beefing with them. According to the Provincial Executive Committee members, it was not a coincidence that my ANC leaders believed to be close to Mbalula were having a go at Gauteng leadership all at once. The fellow, Mbalula, out of nowhere starts it and accuses us of running the province through Zoom meetings. We await to hear him sustain his malicious allegations, which we doubt he can sustain. Then the ANC Youth League president, whom we all know, take instructions from the SG, enters the fray and attacks Gauteng for the electoral decline. Out of all the provinces, the reality is that not a single ANC province increased its votes, said PEC member in Gauteng. For instance, the Eastern Cape lost 8%, KZN lost the entire 40%, but Northern Cape lost 13%, and you can go on and on. But the issue is Gauteng. And then Colin Malatjie is followed by Snooki Zigalala, who calls for our disbandment, saying that we mismanaged coalitions. Is it a coincidence? We do not think so, because the common factor in all of this is the man who delivered both the president of the Youth League and the counterpart of the Veterans League. Zigalala denied calling the Gauteng to be disbanded, saying all he has said is that those making the call must leave the matter in the hands of the NEC meeting scheduled for Thursday. I never said that they must be disbanded, but others were pushing that they be disbanded. I said the proposition can only be discussed at the NEC, which is the meeting on the 1st of August, said Zigalala. But Gauteng has done very badly in elections. And we are not happy about their postures towards the DA and how they handled the government of provincial unity negotiations, because the way they did it, it's thuggery. Gets worse, Bafwet. Gauteng leaders believe that the electoral performance should be judged in comparison to all the ANC provinces, and if is all fair, that there is no plot against them. The NEC is yet to sit down and go a deep dive on electoral performance, but you have a faction that is already painting Gauteng with a bad brush. Where is the report against Gauteng? It does not exist, because this is a factional view. Anyway, you heard it for yourself. I mean, these are the ongoing discussions that are happening within the African National Congress. The fight between the ANC Youth League, what the president of the Youth League said about the leadership of the Gauteng province, and of course the issue of the cigar smoking, the Slave Queen entertainment, and you name it. I mean, he went to town about it. So what is happening in the African National Congress is it's not a good sign, especially looking at 2026, which is just around the corner. Gauteng has definitely lost a lot of numbers in terms of its membership due to the MK. And of course, overall, the MK has taken quite a huge chunk of the voters of the ANC, as well as the membership of the ANC. And as we record this, there's going to be an onslaught in terms of the numbers of the decline of membership within Gauteng and in the ANC because of Zuma. But before I talk about Jacob Zuma, let's listen to what the ANC in Gauteng had to say. Take a listen to the spokesperson, Lesego Makubela, what he had to say.
So for anybody to stand up and insult not just a few people, insult volunteers of the ANC in all the regions, to insult the leadership of the ANC and behave like a hired gun, it has no place in the ANC. And that's why the ANC in Gauteng has written to the officials to say we need to an audience with you, because these unwarranted attacks, they have to be clarified where they come from, who are the sources of these particular attacks, what informs them, why are we beginning to see a youth league that we thought that we were doing away with such behaviors of the youth league of Julius.
All right, welcome back to it, man. As you've heard, the ANC has proceeded with its disciplinary hearing. There were 2 sessions that were, just to give you a little bit of a context, Jacob Zuma announced on the 16th of December last year, which is 2023, that he would be supporting the MK party. And that he will still remain a member of the African National Congress, which is quite absurd, particularly if you think about what the rules say in relation to dual membership. And of course, he proceeded to campaign for the MK party, and until he became the president of the MK party. Now, Zuma continued, took a whole chunk of votes away from the ANC following the national elections. The ANC continued to want to hold a disciplinary hearing against the former president Jacob Zuma. There were back and forths. Of course, they wanted to do it just before the elections, and they wanted to do it publicly. But the SG at the time reported to the media that the decision by the ANC to cancel this disciplinary hearing and postpone it for after elections would continue after the elections results. And of course, the date was given, and they then proposed that the matter of the disciplinary must be done virtually as opposed to physically, because they had done a security assessment and they had realized that it would cause friction between members of the MK and the members of the MKP, the MK party. As we have seen that, in fact, I want you to take a look at this particular video right here. This is when the MK had gathered at the Mary Fitzgerald Square and in protest and in support of Jacob Zuma, who was then supposed to attend a disciplinary hearing online, okay, via Zoom, and he did not attend. He sent his representative, Tony Ngeni, and of course Tony Ngeni went to represent him. And I want you to take a listen to this before I come and take a look at what the rules actually say. The constitution of the ANC, Rule 25, which has been mentioned as to why they ended up expelling him. So I'll go through some of the points in the constitution itself, what it says, but I want you to take a listen to what Tony Ngeni had to say. When we come back, I'll definitely talk a little bit more. Let's take a listen.
See, like any other organization, the ANC has got disciplinary processes, and its members should observe and uphold those processes. However, you've got a number of instances in the ANC history, in the ANC involvement, where members of the ANC vote with parties that are not in alliance with us, namely the DA and others. Even today, we've got a GNU where ANC members, ANC leaders vote with the DA. And nobody's raising the question, in terms of these rules, how do then these rules apply to some people and not to other people? Okay, so there's a whole big debate around that matter. That's why, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, even when I was still in the NC, I used to oppose vehemently this notion of voting with the DA. To me, that thing is unprecedented. You sitting there can say that and say he violated, but you know better that in this country, you can't just sit there and say he violated. There must be a process. That's what we've been doing in the last 2 weeks to determine the veracity of these allegations. And as I'm saying to you now that there's a question that arises at this point in time. When we as ANC members find it necessary to go and vote with the DA on a whole host of issues against the provisions of that ANC constitution. This is what we've done. Why him and not others is the question that arises. Because I explained to the DC that historically and strategically, the ANC has always embraced openness and transparency. And Comrade Jacob Zuma would like to have a physical meeting so that he can look at his accusers in the eye. Especially around an emotional and difficult issue like a DC. To subject an old man of in the age of the 80s to be fiddling with gadgets to be able to face a DC is not something that he'd want to do. He would want to sit in a room with his comrades and discuss and debate the matters at hand. So, and therefore, this notion of hiding behind closed doors, behind a computer and a cell phone, is not something that he can fathom. When I left, it was after they'd decided that they're proceeding with the virtual platform, and they're not going to allow us to have a pre-hearing as we asked them to do, because there are things that we wanted to talk about during that pre-hearing. And they simply said, no, okay, we are proceeding with or without him, and no pre-hearing, and we're calling the first witness. And then the first witness came today, that was Mbalula, who gave some evidence about the press conference in Soweto on December 16. And thereafter they tried to flight the press conference itself on screen, but that did not happen. I mean, if the picture is there, there's no voice.
So there was
if the voice is
glitches.
there, if the voice is there, there's no picture. After 10 minutes, like, guys, this is what I warn you about this virtual platform.
Okay.
So I'm not putting up with this nonsense. I'm leaving.
All right, man, welcome back to it. So you heard for yourself what the representative, former NEC member, Tony Yangeni, I had a conversation with Comrade Tony at the ANC's conference, the last ANC conference. And of course, very interesting views, as always, been a supporter of Jacob Zuma. And we've seen him address the MK party rally. And of course, he is got dual membership too. I don't know if the ANC will discipline him and discipline the many other MKP party members who are still members of the African National Congress. But the ANC had rejected a MK party leader, Jacob Zuma's request to have his disciplinary hearing in public. Now, Jacob Zuma wanted a spectacle out of this thing. He wanted nothing else, man. He wanted to show off strength, and possibly create a friction outside of Luthuli House between his members and the members of the MK. So Zuma did not show up for his virtual meeting on Wednesday, in which he faces disciplinary action after he was charged with misconduct for campaigning for the rival MKP in the May election. Zuma was represented by ANEC member Tony Yangeni in the hearing, and of course to convey a message that he preferred a physical meeting. MKP spokesperson Tlamulo Ndlela said Zuma wanted the hearing to be open to the public for transparency and accountability. What is the sudden interest in the ANC disciplinary hearing for it to be public, and what accountability are you talking about? Anyway, they know that they were going to get more mileage out of having this, and public empathy maybe. That's what they were looking at. He remains, in our view, he remains of the view that, this is Ntamulo, by the way, in these circumstances, the hearing should not only be physical, but also opened up to the public. Those who have nothing to hide must live up to the rights and the values enshrined in the Constitution. I don't know. Is he talking about the Constitution of the ANC or of the MKP? Nonetheless, I'm sure he's referring to the ANC one. The ANC's National Disciplinary Committee granted a postponement requested by Zuma for the 23rd of July. A second pre-hearing conference will be held virtually on the 18th of July. Zuma is happy to have been granted this opportunity. He was happy. In the meantime, he will consult his representatives and other stakeholders before making a decision on the course of action. Ndlela said the acting spokesperson, Zuko Kodlumpi, said while the party agreed to postpone, the hearing would not be public or physical. Neither the pre-hearing conference nor the disciplinary hearing will be open to the public or the media. A verdict will be announced where the committee has received and reviewed all arguments. We cannot specify the time of this process as it depends on the scope of the deliberations and the issues under consideration. So that's what the ANC said. And then, voila, this announcement took place. We heard about it in the news. Take a listen to this.
Samkele Maseko, SABC News political reporter. Samkele, what more are we learning at this hour?
A very good evening to you, Blaine. What we are learning is that the ANC's National Disciplinary Committee of Appeals has recommended the expulsion of former President Jacob Zuma after he failed to appear virtually in the ANC's disciplinary hearing. We also do know that this is a recommendation at this point in time. It still needs to be, a decision of the ANC's National Disciplinary Committee is binding, and the former president in the letter he has about 21 days to appeal this particular verdict. We did ask some members of the ANC's National Disciplinary Committee, and they were unwilling to comment on this particular matter. I'm just going to go to the actual letter itself. It starts with the background and what informs the former president. It goes to count 1, which is basically that you are guilty of contravening Rule 2517.4 of the ANC Constitution, acting on behalf of or collaboration with political organization or party, either than an organization or party in alliance with the ANC in a manner contrary to the aims, policies, and objectives of the ANC. That was count 1. And it goes on to count 2, which is Rule 2517.13 of the ANC Constitution, which reads, joining or supporting a political organization or party other than an organization in alliance with the ANC in a manner contrary to the aims, objectives, and policies of the ANC. Those are the 2 counts that the former president was basically being charged at in the African National Congress. They go back to their narration of the events since the 16th of December 2023, where he publicly endorsed the MK party and how he has subsequently turned his back on the governing party. So in essence, the ANC's NDC makes the following ruling. The disciplinary hearing of the charged member will be held virtually on a virtual platform, which was supposed to take place on the 23rd of July at 10 o'clock, and he opted to be represented by Tony Yengeni. It reads that Comrade Tony Yengeni was not available to attend the pre-hearing conference on Thursday, 18th of July. The NDC sent the following communique to Tony Yengeni. Let me fast forward and go to the actual verdict that the ANC's National Disciplinary has decided on. The NDC finding. Right. The charged member is found guilty of contravening Rule 25.17.17.4 of the ANC Constitution. Read with the subsection 2 of the prejudicing the integrity or reputation of the organization by acting in collaboration with a registered political party to with the MK party, which is not in alliance with the ANC in a manner contrary to the aims, policies, and objectives of the ANC. The charged member is expelled from the ANC. The charged member has the right to appeal the National Disciplinary Committee of Appeal within 21 days. So basically, the former president can go to the NDCA of the African National Congress to appeal this particular judgment. Right. At this point in time, it is a draft. It has not yet been fully finalized. and has not yet been fully communicated with the ANC's officials or ANC structures. But what we do know is that the former president could not appear virtually because he did complain of a network issue out in Nkandla. Right. He did opt to be represented by Tony Yengeni, whom as well opted out of the meeting of the NDC, of the hearing, when it took place last week due to problems of network connection. So effectively, right, the former president at this point in time has been preliminarily expelled from the governing party upon finalization or official communication of these particular letters. We did speak to some members of the ANC's National Disciplinary Committee of Appeals, and some of them just basically said, what do you take us for? We can't be confirming ANC communication with journalists at this point in time.
Okay, so I've had a look at Rule 25, okay? So Rule 25, it's basically quite lengthy. It speaks about the management of the organizational discipline. So I'm not going to go through every single point, but I'm just going to go to a few key ones. So in terms of jurisdiction of this particular Rule 25.4, says the ANC shall have jurisdiction to discipline any member, office bearer, or public representative for committing any act of misconduct as contained in Rule 25.17 below, as a member of the ANC or by virtue of his or her contract of deployment and or by virtue of his or her membership of any of the structures of the ANC. All right, so what does Rule 25.17 say? All right, so I'm going to go to it. Acts of misconduct, which is 25.17, right? It says the following conduct by a member or officer, or office bearer or public representatives shall constitute misconduct in respect of which disciplinary proceedings may be invoked and constituted against him or her. 25.17.1, the conviction in a court of law and be sentenced to a term of imprisonment without the option of a fine for any serious non-political offense. Conviction of a court of law for any serious non-political offense. 25.17.3 says failing or refusing or neglecting to execute or comply with any ANC policy, standing order, rule, regulation or resolution adopted or made in terms of this constitution or breaching the provision of this constitution. 25.17.4 says behaving in a manner or making any utterance which brings or could bring or has the potential to bring as a consequence thereof brings the ANC into disrepute. I don't know if this will apply to Maile as well as Maile and Malatjie as well. 25.17.5, sowing racism, sexism, tribal chauvinism, religious or political intolerance, regionalism, or any form of discrimination. Okay, so it goes on and on and on and on. I'm just trying to... Okay, participating in any organized factional activity that goes beyond the recognized norms of free debate in the side of the ANC which threatens its unity. Hey, there's a lot of comrades who are going to be disciplined. Hey, according to this thing, you're publishing or distributing any media publication without authorization, which purports to be the view of any organized grouping, faction, or tendency within the ANC. Undermining the respect for or impeding the functioning of any ANC structure or committee of the ANC. All right. Now, here's the rule that actually applied to Jacob Zuma in this instance. Joining or supporting, and this is Rule 25.17.12. Joining or supporting a political organization or party other than the organization in alliance with the ANC in a manner contrary to the aims, objectives, and policy of the ANC. Standing in an election for local, provincial, and national government, or acting as the election agent or canvasser of a person standing in such election for any political party in opposition to a candidate duly endorsed by the NEC or PEC. All right, so I mean, the rules go on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of things people can be disciplined for. And of course, the work of the disciplinary committee is going to be extremely busy. If they indeed do follow with these rules as per the Constitution, by following up on some of the members who are A, causing factionalism, B, distributing, posting things that sow division within the movement, and C, those who chose to represent the MK but still remain members of the ANC. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But this is how I want you to think about and talk about, and let me know what your thoughts are. And I really appreciate your comments. I really do. And please tell me what you think about the rules. Tell me what you think about what the ANC has done in dealing with these matters, the public utterances of some of the members. And of course, this includes Jacob Zuma and the firing. But I want you to take a listen to this, man. Of course, the news broke, and Samkela Maseko, SABC, broke this news. And what does it mean to the African National Congress? But first, let's take a listen.
Breaking news coming in this evening. Many of us would say we're really not surprised by what the ANC Disciplinary Committee has taken there in that decision.
Oh yes, Mbali, very good evening. It's not surprising at all, given that when on the 16th of December, former president announced that he would be campaigning and voting for a newly formed party then, which was MK, that was in violation of Rule 25 of the ANCYL's constitution, so which basically says you cannot campaign or promote a political party that is rivaling the ANC. So clearly that alone was good enough to get him perhaps hauled before the DC, and then given the nature of what has happened, it was indeed a foregone conclusion that he would be expelled.
And you know, we were expecting the former president Jacob Zuma to appear virtually in that disciplinary hearing, but we understand that that did not take place, and instead he had asked one of his colleagues, of course, to take part in that disciplinary hearing, but we also understand that he was not able to do so. What do we know about you know, the merits of this disciplinary hearing if there was no one really representing the former president in that regard?
You know that in Bali, the ANC constitution provides that you can be represented by any member of the ANC in good standing. So that is what needs to happen. That's why you saw Tony Yengini who representing him. But I think the issue was when this matter was first brought to the fore, when the ANC decided to charge him and hold him before the DC. At first, it was to happen at Luthuli House. As the plans to get it underway at Luthuli House, the former president already has a party, and the party decided that they were going to go to Luthuli House, and then it was the time when there was a serious build-up to the elections, and then of course political tensions couldn't be ruled out, so all those things would have to be taken into account. So the ANC then, given that we were in an election period, decided it was going to postpone. Obviously
Look, it's very disappointing at the conduct that of the ANC. You know, we find ourselves now having to respond to yourselves, you know, off the back of a document and a ruling that is circulating on social media when we haven't actually received this formally. Neither President Zuma, Comrade Tony Yengini, or even our legal team has had sight of any formal correspondence. No, I mean, he's obviously aware of it. But how do we give comment when we've not, or even respond to something that's in social media and in the public platform when he's not received it himself? Is it true? Is it not? I mean, that's the question we need to be asking ourselves here. So we can't give a formal response until, we get a formal submission from them in a form of a ruling. Well, President Zuma, I mean, when he made the statement on December 16, 2023, he stated clearly and categorically so that he's a member of the ANC and that he'll die a member of the ANC. But he's got the right to vote and campaign for whichever party that he so wishes. And he's, in this case, as you know, it's public knowledge, he's the president of Umkhonto weSizwe.
All right, man. This is, I'm sure you heard for yourself. And of course, this is another episode of the Free Ride podcast, focusing on the politics of the country, the politics of the governing African National Congress, and of course, the issues that are happening within the ANC in Gauteng, in the country, and at national level. And of course, this is how I come to the end of another Free Ride podcast for this week. Listen, peeps, I really appreciate those of you who have been subscribing, sharing, liking, and of course, commenting on our platforms from Facebook to TikTok to YouTube. I really appreciate it, and all the other platforms. And I really appreciate your feedback. Your comments are so many, man. There's so many. And of course, I can't go through everything, but let's check out what social media had to say about these matters before I say goodbye. Because damn, people had so much to say about these matters, man. Let's quickly take a look at those comments, because you, my people, have a view on everything that is happening in the country, man. Let's start off with this one. Of course, this is in relation to what the ANC Youth League has been saying, and this is what your comments had to be, or what you guys had to say. Darlington Machila says disband the entire ANC Youth League structures. Ntuli Sompisi says, I've been saying this. The current ANC Youth League has become irrelevant and redundant. No more representing of our interests as young people. Another one, Innocent Loafer Shoes says, there is no unity in the ANC. I'm wondering how they're expected to manage a GNU when they fail to unite themselves. So something that we really need to look at within African National Congress. The crypto guy says, you love Malema. You mention him so many times in an interview, which is talking about Malatjie. You cannot sound relevant without mentioning Juju. Patrick N. Takumwa says 10 years and he's still focusing on Malema. Shame. The Muso, Moso Kumo, I don't know, Musweu. The ANC goes to mainstream media to claim that the Youth League adopted Malema's behavior after 15 years CIC was expelled from the ANC. The ANC is a joke. Vusi Tumisani says these guys, they seem not to understand that they must desist from internal squabbles, which is one of the major catalysts for the electoral decline. People are looking for services, not this nonsense. The last one, Fumba Taki Chaka. I don't know why people come up with such weird social media names, man. This fool wants to sound smart by mentioning CIC, Julius Malema. Where does he enter in what this fool Colin was saying? Yarr. Obageng Setaiso says this fool is still talking about Juju at this time. No GNU without DA. Malatjie boy is Mbalula's mouthpiece. So those are the comments, man. Of course, you can check out more comments on social media. I'm not going to post everything that was said between Malatjie as well as Maile, the two M's. And of course, this is how I come to the end of our Free Ride Podcast. I appreciate everything that you guys do, man. The comments, the likes, the shares, for signing up, for following, for being subscribers. And the channel is growing day by day. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. This has been an episode of the Free Ride Podcast. Take care of yourselves. Murimuko. Tomorrow, which is the 30th and the 31st, I'll be in council. I'll be giving you updates with what's happening in council. Check it out, man. Right here and on my other platform that I'm managing. It's the ANC Joburg Podcast. Check that out. Peace.